Well, despite a dozen wins and a division crown, the Cowboys season came to a disappointing finish in the wild card round. Let's get into it with Nick Eatman, of course, the team's beat writer, has been for the last couple decades. Adam Kaufman with you. And Nick, I mean, I've never seen a game end quite like that one. I'm not sure anybody has, quite frankly. Of course, you had the elongated several minutes that it took to play the last minute and a half, 2 minutes of that game. Mike McCarthy coming out and criticizing the officials for not getting the ball spotted in time for a final play. Dak Prescott with the quips about debris being thrown at officials on the field after the fact. And of course, just all of it really tough to digest. Now that you've had some time since this game has ended, what are your biggest takeaways here?
Well, I mean, it was one of those games where, I mean, it was kind of what I expected. That, I mean, I said this like a month ago. I don't know who they're going to play or what day of the week it's going to be, but it's going to be about 6-7 minutes to go in the game, and they'll have a chance to make plays and win the game. It's going to be close. Are they going to make it? And they didn't. That's what it came down. They didn't make the plays when they needed to, and and that's kind of been the theme all year long. A lot of people are like, wow, this team, they teased us, they fooled us, they're frauds. And honestly, I don't think that's the case. I think they showed us exactly what they were all year long. They're a team that's going to have a slow start. They're a team that's not going to run the ball well. Dak Prescott is not going to be as accurate as he needs to be at times. They're going to be able to compete with the best teams, but not beat them. They can beat. I mean, they're 6-0 in the division, 6-6 outside of the division, and it was a bad division. So they're pretty good team. They were a pretty good team. Pretty good, get you beat in the first round of the wild card. And I think, honestly, I wasn't really seeing it. I didn't see all those things. You just think this year's different. It's different. And it was different than last year. But at the end of the day, it was not good enough. And that's why they're sitting at home.
You mentioned Dak Prescott. He quarterbacked the NFL's top offense, at least statistically, and I know at times numbers can be deceiving, of course, very up and down the second half of the year. But nevertheless, the stats were what they were, and he had an opportunity twice, in fact, down 6 in the final 3 minutes with a chance to, go out and win this game for Dallas. And a lot of people immediately want to jump to the contract and the $40 million a year and all of it. Does the disappointment, I guess, get elevated when you consider the big reward he got last offseason?
Yeah, I mean, and to know that he didn't play his best. He's going to have to play better. But I'm not saying that you're stuck with Dak. I mean, I'm not saying that. He's a really good quarterback. Is he good enough to take you there to the top? I don't know. I mean, he hasn't. It's the same with Tony Romo. We thought Tony was pretty good, and he was, but his pretty good doesn't always get it unless you're special at something else. The defense is just outstanding, where then, you can carry a quarterback that maybe isn't that great. But if Dak has to just lead this team and drag it to the playoffs, I mean, to the championship game, the Super Bowl, he hasn't shown he can do that yet. So yeah, he got a huge contract because it was his turn to get the contract. He got it. He played pretty well this year, but he's got to get better too, and that's just the reality of it. And there's a lot of things on that offense that has to get better. Zeke's not going anywhere right now. Dak's not going anywhere. That offensive line has got to get retooled. That's, to me, the easiest way to and it's going to be hard, but it's still the easiest way to get it fixed.
Nick, I feel like I have to apologize to you because you're kind enough to do these interviews with me every single week. And for the last few years, constantly, I'm asking you about whether your team should or will have a new head coach. We're looking at this thing right now, Mike McCarthy. Even last year, I was asking you in his first year, is this guy on the hot seat? Now, in the eyes of many fans, media, he should be gone already. Of course, ownership has come out and offered its support of Mike McCarthy, that he will be back for a third year. Is there anything at this point that changes that decision, or is that something we should expect?
I don't know if anything will change the decision. Because you never know what Jerry's thinking. It wasn't Jerry that said that. His son, Stephen Jones, said that. He says he's absolutely confident he will be back. A couple of things I have to go off of here is is really when you break it down, there's been one season. I don't know if you can truly judge what McCarthy and that staff did with the COVID year, and then Dak getting hurt. They're 6-10. That happens. I think the next, and come back this year, 12-5, and lost the first round of the playoffs and all that, but still had a top offense and defense and great. So that plus the fact of, and I'll go back 20 years, he fired Chan Gailey after 2 seasons in 98 and 99, 2 playoff seasons, 2 playoff exits. And after 2 seasons, he fired him, and he said that he regretted that as much as any move he's ever made. And so I wonder if it's just too early to cut the cord on that. There's going to have to be things happening behind closed doors that I really don't know about. That would probably be the reason for that. So it's a long-winded answer to think I don't think so. All I can do is go off of history and the signs, and history says that it's probably not going to happen.
Well, whether or not Mike McCarthy's back, obviously there could be changes to his staff, maybe big ones. You have defensive coordinator, former Falcons head coach Dan Quinn, who led a great turnaround for that defense. I mean, I know there were some issues during the year with penalties and that sort of thing, but overall, just a tremendous turnaround from the 2020 COVID year. He's interviewing for head coaching jobs, the Broncos, the Vikings, the Dolphins, the Bears. You have Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, interviewing with a few of those teams as well. Should we expect one or both of those guys back or to go?
I would expect at least one to be gone, maybe 2. Things are going to happen fast. I don't really know. I'm not sure, how quickly we'll hear about changes, but I would imagine with Dan Quinn, something will probably happen with him that he'll get he'll get a head coaching job. I just can't imagine him sitting in the room with anybody and them saying, "No, I don't want him." I mean, he's awesome, and the Cowboys, I'm sure, want to keep him. And there's no salary cap to the coaching, so Jerry can open up the pocketbook there if he wants to, but I would say 95%. I say 95 because there are some people that don't necessarily want to be the man, but most people in coaching, that's their job, that's their goal, to be a head coach. And Dan Quinn's done it. He's been there. And then he took a year off from that and was a great coordinator. I'm sure he'll want one of those positions as well. And so I would imagine he's gone. Kellen, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. That last game certainly didn't help. I couldn't imagine that helps his resume there. I think he'll be back.
Well, when we spoke about this time last year, of course, we were talking about the draft and looking ahead, and I'm sure we'll connect again at some point before the draft rolls along. Got a little ways before that, but you were very clear. The big priority was get a BA. They did that. Micah Parsons,
they did that.
He was absolutely phenomenal this year. What's the priority this time around?
Offensive line, without a doubt. And I was joking with someone, and I said, "Hey, I'll tell you right now, you picking 24th overall, I'm taking offensive lineman." And then the guy said, "Do you really want to pigeonhole yourself like that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not pigeonhole. I'm taking guard, center, or tackle. I mean, I got 3 positions there. One of the 3. Give me an offensive lineman, though. I mean, this is not the line that it was a few years ago. And Dak got here in 2016. He was a rookie 4th-round pick that won Rookie of the Year, and Zeke was leading the league in rushing. Were they ready to come in and take over the league? Maybe, but it was probably because that offensive line was just outstanding, and it's not anymore. It's not outstanding anymore. They got to get a better center. They need to get bigger guards, more push, more strength, more durability. Cross the line. It's got to be a fix. It's got to be a 1st-round pick. It's got to be maybe a 2nd or 3rd. It's got to be a trade in the draft for a veteran on another team, maybe that, is in the last year of his deal, but he's still a really good player. They needed some things like that. I'm switching out 3 of the 5 starting positions I think need to be changed.
Cowboys have some tough, big decisions this offseason too, with regard to guys that are either free agents or already obviously under contract. You've got DeMarcus DeMarcus Lawrence, you have Amari Cooper, you have Tyron Smith, you have Lyle Collins. These are all guys with big price tags, obviously big names as well. Leighton Vander Esch, Randy Gregory, Dalton Schultz, they're all free agents. Who's going to be back?
Well, of those first group that you said, I anticipate them coming back. Of that group, I don't see any roster cuts there. As for the other guys, Randy Gregory, I think that'll probably be the top priority, and I say that because nobody's given him more support and stood by him more than Jerry Jones. Nobody. I mean, obviously he's the owner, but he's been there every step of the way because he always thought that at some point Randy could turn it around and fix his life and be a phenomenal player. And here he's done that, and now he's a free agent. You don't do all of that and then say, well, we'll let him go. I think him, D-Law, Micah Parsons, just having those three guys in there, you might lose Dan Quinn. There will be a line longer than this whole building of defensive coordinators that would want to come and coach this team. I think you got to keep Gregory. Schultz, you just paid Jarwin. I don't know, to me, Schultz is Jay Novacek. And Jay Novacek has taken it back a few years. But just a really good, reliable security blanket for the quarterback. Smart player. Needs to get a little better as a blocker, but those would be my two priorities, I think, that I would try to bring back. Leighton Vander Esch is another one. He had a great game against San Francisco, but they don't play San Francisco all the time. If you play teams like that a lot, then I think Vander Esch could star. But you play in a lot of teams with West Coast offenses that are he's having to cover a lot, and that's not really his strength. So, he's a Big Ten type football player playing kind of a fish out of water on a lot of games. If you muddy it up, I think he needs to go to the AFC North where you're playing Pittsburgh and the Baltimore and Cincinnati and Cleveland. That's where I think he would probably be really good because that's the type of player he is. So I don't know. I would go on and on and on. They got receivers. They got all these kind of guys that they need to make decisions on.
Nick, I know we'd prefer to be previewing the divisional round and talking about fantasy outlook and all that stuff. Unfortunately, that's not the time right now. But, on to 2022, and we'll connect again this offseason talking about big free agent moves and all the drafts and needs and everything like that. We appreciate your time so much throughout this season. We'll connect again soon.
Always a pleasure, guys. I appreciate it. And whenever you need me, I'll pop on.
Sounds great.